All right, everyone, it's Wednesday. Welcome to our office hours here on the ViaMonstra Academy. This is where you can ask questions on MDT, Intune, ConfigMgr, PowerShell, OSD, pretty much most things related to Microsoft infrastructure. My name is Johan. I will be your host for the next hour. And that being said, let the questions begin. All right, let me just flip over to my demo machine here. Here we go. Close this one down and open up the little office hours thing I usually show. This one here. For those of you who are new to office hours, this one is available here on the ViaMonstra Academy. And we also live stream on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can ask questions on those platforms, except for Twitter that doesn't yet support an API for the chat channel when doing a stream, but the other channels do. So I have a window open right here where I can see the chats from those locations. And that being said, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. Usual, friendly reminder, all links and stuff that we share here during the live stream, they are being shared on the office hours section on the Academy. So simply log in there, you'll have access to those. We usually get them out on YouTube as well a little bit later. So we have our ViaMonstra Academy YouTube channel as well where you can find this stuff. So there is a question coming in on YouTube. It's from Chris. Um, Is there any way to get past the 15 device enrollment limit for Android Enterprise and Work profile? I have absolutely no idea. Intune and mobile device management is an area that I rarely touch and not planning on working with it either in the near future. I'm good with desktop operating systems, the mobile, not so much. So I'm sorry, I have no idea. If anyone on the call happen to know, please let me know in the chat or reply to the chat if you want. But I'll be happy to share that information. But sorry there, Chris. It's out of my knowledge area. I know a few folks who would know though. I can get some links. For example, John will probably know the answer to that question, so you can totally ask him a question on Twitter. I will post that link in the chat for you. They are one of the admins or instructors here on the Academy that run our mobile training. And if anyone knows the answer to that question, it would be one of those guys. So we have Jan, we have Maurice. Can get his link as well. Give me a second. That would be this young man. He also knows a ton about drivers and BIOS updates. but it does mobile device management a lot. Let's see, well, Sandy would be a good option. Also, Microsoft MVP works with this. And these folks are all pretty much active on Twitter. And finally, Ben Whitmore would be a good resource to follow and to ask questions to in general. All of these folks have been active in the community for a long time, and they are pretty dang good in answering questions when they show up. All right. So that should probably be helpful, I think. All right. Any other questions? And good evening to you, Andrew. I saw a little good evening comment there in the YouTube channel. Perfect. So let's see, we have a question from Mark here in the Zoom call. That is part of the sort of academy lesson or course. For OSD, do you recommend installing all apps during the sequence, or would it be worth laying down the OS first with a basic sequence and then adding apps like afterwards with normal, required deployments and whatnot? For me, it's always been when I image a computer, I want it to be done, like completely done before I hand it over to someone. So if I already know beforehand that the user is supposed to have 12 different applications, I prefer to have the sequence install them at the same time. If you want performance during imaging, there is a lot of other things that can be done to speed up the process, and that's even without having to create reference images and whatnot. But you can have large applications, you can put them into WIM files. We talked about that during the office hours earlier. You can make sure to enable performance on your sequences. So basically, a scenario that I actually talked about, we had a class earlier today. And we're talking about speeding up deployment for large applications. So we're talking about Autodesk, which is a 3D Studio Max. It is an application that it's not very big per se. It's only a few gigs, but it has 20-some thousand files on it. And it takes a long time to push out during a sequence, especially if you're using HTTPS. It simply takes a very long time to download that many files. But if you don't mind putting that into a WIM file, so basically, see if I put that script, I was just showing it here. So you can have a little PowerShell script that creates a WIM file out of one of your applications. And then you have a wrapper script that you deploy it with or install it. And that wrapper script simply mounts the WIM file, runs the installer, and dismounts the WIM file. So you can do this with applications. You should do it already with your drivers because that also speeds up deployment quite a bit. And you can combine this, of course, with making sure that your sequences, let's see what I have, this one here maybe. Just making sure that they are running as high performance because it doesn't do much on virtual machines, but it's a big difference on physical devices. And also these days, modern hardware, SSD drives, good CPUs, good networking, usually allows us for deploying pretty quickly during imaging. Final piece to that question, if you do have a lot of applications in sequences that you want to deploy, it is usually a bit more reliable to have them as legacy packages versus application model applications. So basically this one instead of this one. If you only have a few normal apps, no problem. But if you start to come up in the 50, 60, 70 apps in a sequence, you will find that having them as packages is faster and more reliable. All right. I hope I answered that question. So there was a follow-up comment from Mark there. Not so much performance, but for reliability. Yeah, and that is basically if you treat them as packages, all those applications, it is very reliable. You can do like 1,000 deployments, and all those 1,000 deployments is going to go through. If you have a lot of apps and do 1,000 deployments, you can bet that a few of them are going to not install some of those applications. It's just different in how the sequence deals with that. When you have legacy packages, it's the sequence itself that basically just installs them right away. When you have an application model app, the sequence basically, all right, here is an app, and it hands it over to the ConfigMgr client and say, hey, do your magic, and then let me know when you're done. And then hopefully the client returns something back. And it's just been over the years that timing has been problematic for the sequence for whatever reason. So packages are more reliable. All right. Let's see. Mr. Darren from the UK. Let's see. The ConfigMgr client reports. So basically, ConfigMgr client report PKI, but console shows a mix of self-signed certs and PKI. Checked a few which I self-signed, but the client report says this PKI. Is this normal? I actually don't. I don't know. Not from the top of my head. Let's see if I have a PKI environment I can spin up real quick. Usually keep a few of those around. I have enough memory to run it. That should be okay. If this guy will start up in a timely fashion, I can take a look at that report. So a follow-up question, where in the console do you see these the mix of self-signed and PKI? Is one of the reports, or is it just in the collection itself? And if it's one of the reports, just give me the name of the report and we can take a look. All right, under all devices, so not reports. Thank you for that clarification. See if I can get the console going here. I believe this is a good old 2107. Haven't touched this one in a little while. Probably time to upgrade this lab. Come on. The server is a little bit busy. I have a lot of machines running, so give it some time to get to grips with things. I mean, what can possibly be wrong in a live demo? Apparently a lot of things. Now, I have two clients here, and they should be all PKI, I think. Definitely is a certificate here. Yeah, so this one is PKI, and this one should be PKI as well. I didn't want to start a mail application, thank you. I'm good, don't need it. Yeah, this one is PKI too. So let's go back to the console, see if we can get the PKI config manager one up. That one is apparently still trying to config the database. I'm hoping is running. Yeah, looks like it. I should launch. Show what's up with this one. Database is there, it's running. Not sure why this one is taking a long time. Might have to come back to that in a little bit and give this some time to connect. All right, I'll see what other questions there are in the meantime. Andrew's asking what I'm looking at some courses on the Academy. If you have any suggestions, well, yes, obviously. It depends on the topic that you want to learn about, but we have topics on most infrastructure type classes. So we have imaging classes, ConfigMgr classes, both from a deployment point of view, but also from an admin and operations point of view. In general, if you go to the Academy and are interested in more than 2 courses, it is smarter to get a pass because that's actually cheaper than buying 3 courses. But each of the other courses, they run for 6 weeks. They are $300. It's not the end of the world. It's usually doable to get management to pitch in that because for a 6 week long training is, I'm biased, but it's a pretty good deal. But yeah, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any comments about the details. But each outline is pretty detailed about the courses that are available and what contains in them. And I have a feeling this little friend needs a friendly reboot. I'm going to give that one a friendly reboot. What I've learned over the years is that sometimes when you have a gazillion of VMs and you constantly save and resume them all the time, ConfigMgr gets a little bit upset about that, and a friendly reboot, of course, will hopefully make it more happy there. All right, let's see. Darren is asking, having an issue with changing the MP role to HTTPS, with some clients not receiving new deployments. Have reverted to HTTP for now. Wonder if this might be the problem. Thanks for checking. So basically what I've seen lately, there were some issues in 2203 that was fixed with a hotfix recently. So that might be something to look into. Um, I've seen some weird stuff where either there are multiple users logged in or the time on the machine is wrong, but that's regardless if it's HTTP or HTTPS. I have seen scenarios, but sometimes just taking a device out of collection that has a deployment and put it back in makes the deployment show up. And I've also seen scenarios where I actually had to reset the policies at like a last resort, or simply reinstall the agent one more time, and deployments are then starting to come down to the client. A tool that is pretty helpful in troubleshooting that is the support center tool. So you can install that from the site these days in the site, in tools, and support center. They added it a few years back, but if you run that installer, you get the tool, and this tool is pretty good in showing deployments coming down or the policies coming down to the machine, but also listen for events. And here is an option to the last resort option to basically do a policy reset. But don't do this as your first troubleshooting step, because this can take at least half an hour to go through that process. But I have seen that helping in scenarios where there are deployments available. You can see them on the device in Config Manager, but it simply doesn't show up on the client. So timing, multiple users, basically broken policies on the client, and clean them up. All right. Let's go back to our little friend here and see if it decides to come to life. It was interesting. Unless I accidentally installed this on a trial version of SQL, and then of course it will have a hard time connecting, but then I should have seen that otherwise. No, not running out of disk space either. Here we go. Finally. All right, here we go. Device collections, or devices, I think was the question. Those clients, they are starting up, so they have been inactive for a while, obviously. So I wonder what. Oh, they all show up as PKI clients here. And this one, I obviously don't have too many clients in this one, but this is what they should look like in this column here. It should not show self-signed in this scenario, not in the full PKI environment. This is the 21.11 version. I mean, there are a few hotfixes for that version as well as available. So if you don't own the latest, I recommend going to that one, see if it helps. This one, as I mentioned before, I believe it's oh, that one is even old. This was a 21.03. And apparently it's downloading 22.03 at the moment. I can get that one upgraded later. All right, let's see what else. Joe is asking, will I be put together a Microsoft Defender course at any time? No, nothing scheduled on that part. I know that Michael van Harenbeek is coming back this Q3 in August for a rerun of the mastering 365 security class that we used to have. And that one covers Defender as well. Follow-up questions from Chris here. Besides reporting, what are reasons to keep Azure joint devices co-managed versus just using Intune? Well, if you look at the feature set for example, software distribution, ConfigMgr still has a lot of things that is simply not available in Intune. And if you want to keep that, have those features available, that would be a scenario where you do have them in co-managed state and then just flip the workloads back and forth between ConfigMgr and Intune for either some of your devices or all of your devices. Also, of course, Intune doesn't do servers, so if you still have a bunch of servers to manage, you will use ConfigMgr for that. But it's all about what you really need. Some organizations, they have what they need, or at least good enough for them to do Intune management only. But I've worked with a lot of customers where they simply cannot leave ConfigMgr right now, or they don't want to leave ConfigMgr right now. And for that scenario, to extend it with having Intune to get additional functions available from that platform, it makes total sense. Most customers I'm working with right now, they are on a journey of either having gone towards co-management or are in the process of going to co-management. So it does bring some benefits to it, but I have a feeling ConfigMgr is going to stick around for a very long time, probably a good decade or so at the very least. It's almost been running for 3 decades already, coming up 30 years soon. But yeah, I hope that answered that question. Chris is commenting, HTTPE turned on. In my PKI environment, no. Since it's a pure PKI, I don't need enhanced HTTP. But most of my other labs I have set up for this. And the reason is obviously that HTTP only is no longer being supported by the platform. So if you have not yet gone either full PKI or select this option here, which is, then you should. This is a no-brainer if you're not using PKI, in my opinion. Makes a lot of things much easier. BitLocker management, cloud management gateway setup. You don't need a network access account when you do imaging. There is just a lot of good stuff by enabling this one here. So, all right. So what else? Server-side logs. So that's another question coming in on YouTube. Server-side logs to monitor client notifications, please. Well, we have the big BGP logs. Let me see where. Assuming you're talking about fast channel stuff. If I get that question right. Yeah, the BGP manager log will have some info. Let's see where I have that one. Forgot if it's in the MP folder or in the actual normal log folder. It might be in the MP folder. No, here is one that is server-side logging of that notification together with the server setup itself for this. So this is the fast channel in ConfigMgr. So probably this one would be a good start. We also, of course, have the notification log files on the client itself, and that together with status messages queries on the server side can often help you figure out what's going on with that one. Anoop has a pretty good post on troubleshooting fast channel stuff. If I can find it here. He's one of the ConfigMgr MVPs, has been around for a long time, helping in the community. So if you haven't seen this post, it's pretty dang good. I'll put a link to that one in the chat. All right, here we go. All right, let's see what else is coming in here. We have a whopping 26 minutes available, so if you do have any more questions, don't hesitate to ask them. The question here in the Zoom call, and organizations I deal with are planning to implement or is planning to implement Pixie for config manager using IP helpers. Have you seen that configuration works well in practice? Absolutely, yes. Pretty much every single customer I work with are using IP helpers for rerouting clients that are on a different VLAN than the Pixie servers to find their Pixie servers. Now, it works with the scope options also, but it's a bit more of a setup, and I found IP helpers just being much more reliable and easier to work with compared to the scope options. If you really, really need the scope options, there are some good guides available. Andreas put together one a while ago for our iPixie server, but Pixie is Pixie. So I can give that link to you. This one here. This one takes you through everything you need to know on setting it up for UEFI and BIOS-based and whatnot, and all the different ports and vendor classes and all the other good stuff that you may have to do. So put that link in the chat. That was one point I got so tired of that config, so I wrote PowerShell script to do it for me. I did put that one to GitHub somewhere. But Pixie maybe? Yeah, this one. It's a PowerShell script that creates everything you need for, in this case, this particular Pixie server, but you can adopt this for any type of Pixie server. I'll put that link in the chat. Something to play around with. But I do recommend IP helpers and always have. That was all before learning about the new features in 2012 when they came in what you can do in scope options. I would say never ever scope options, but these days I'm flexible. I just happen to prefer IP helpers. I have an old tweet I can share with you. Kind of explains it a little bit, but this was basically a while ago, a few years back. But I would always go the IP helper route before basically giving in. But yeah, that's my point on it. Right. Let's see. There was a follow-up comment in the chat. Basically, a few folks chatting with each other, which is pretty cool. But it was regarding using Intune for software update management, and the comment was there related to what about servers? Well, Intune doesn't do servers, as we mentioned earlier, so you have to use something else to manage updates for those. So either use ConfigMgr for it, or set up something around Azure automation or something like that, um, because you want to have that control of your service typically. Yeah. So, Seth, you have a question here on YouTube with AutoPilot. Do you think OSD from ConfigMgr will go obsolete? And if yes, how long until it does? It comes back to who is deploying Windows. Autopilot is not deployment. Autopilot is a technique to make a machine become under management or enroll into management. Someone better deploy Windows to it. And that someone is either going to be you, it's going to be a service partner, or it's going to be an OEM that does it for you. So deployment is going to be around for a very long time. What we're really talking about here is who is going to do it. And what I found is that even organizations who go in, buy in Autopilot all the way, they still keep some imaging internally for break fix scenarios, and basically if you need to get something out there quickly, you cannot really just place an order with Dell, wait 7 days for a machine to be built at best and getting shipped to a user. Sometimes you just need to get the work done. So keeping a deployment solution as a sort of a backup plan is also brilliant. And I was funny. I was publishing a post yesterday because one of the customers I was working with on Autopilot, Autopilot was down for 8 days. They couldn't do imaging at all because the Autopilot service didn't work. And the last month alone, May, I lost count the number of times Autopilot was very, very shaky. So you need to have something. So I was doing enrollment packages, bulk enrollment packages. And this is something you can use also if you want to do like mass scale stuff enrollment. You not want to have someone typing in a username and password just to get the machine enrolled. Uh, so there are options available. Autopilot is just one technique to make this enrollment possible. I don't think deployment will ever go away, but I think you will see over the years a shift is who doing it. And I think I will see more of service partners and OEMs providing that deployment as a service to organizations rather than doing it only in-house. That's my take on it, at least. All right. See any other questions that you might have? Still have 18 more minutes. I missed anyone earlier. Any more questions? It stumbled across some cool stuff yesterday. Was going to download one of the 80K versions, and I just learned that there was a new one being out there. So there are two 80K 11 versions available. One that is 2020 H2, where Microsoft actually now removed the x86, the 32-bit modem it is from, whereas the old version actually have it. So as of now, we have two of them. This one here that came last year, and this one here that came May 24 this year. This one here, don't use it with ConfigMgr. A, not supported. 2, it doesn't work. So hopefully it will be added eventually, support for it. But for now, if you're going to do deployment, stick to either this one here or this one here. So these two versions works beautifully with ConfigMgr. To be supported on Windows 11 deployments, you need to be on this one. If you don't mind not being supported, this one still works, even for Windows 11 deployments. But for my part, I'm running most of my environments now on ADK for Windows 11. So this one has been fairly solid, this one right here, and it will happily deploy every server 2012 to 2022 and Windows 10 and Windows 11. Good stuff there. All right, any other questions? Well, I hope you guys learned that Richard is doing his VPN course next week. This is one for the community. The enrollment is free, no charge, but this is a 2-hour session on always on VPN that you can attend. So this one falls under the same umbrella as the office hours. This is something you can always just join whenever you feel like it. Try to do at least one of these every month, giving back a little bit. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in. So we're back with office hours next week. Same time, same channel. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. Thanks for the many good questions. And I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Thank you for now.